Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, joining us now. Hello to you, Mr Mayor. You're procrastinating allowed the virus to spread in your region.
Well, I'm not sure it's helpful to go over the coals. We should be facing forward at the moment, but it's not true either, Kay. If you go back to those negotiations with the government, we were left waiting over a whole weekend, myself and the 10 leaders of Greater Manchester, while the government walked away. So they need to get their facts right. But also, we wouldn't have been in that position had the government listened to SAGE back in September and brought forward the national circuit break much earlier. So, as I said, I don't know how the government thinks it's helpful to do this. And I also don't know why they think imposing tiers on the whole of the country is an appropriate response just because they had a row with me. It doesn't sound like very grown-up government to me.
I do want to talk about that, but I do just want to pick up, if I may, in a little bit more detail on what the Transport Secretary was saying. You know, he was speaking on behalf of the government this morning, and he basically, in a thinly veiled attack on you personally, basically said that if you had come to the table and done what the government had said earlier, then more lives could have been saved. You've cost lives by your action, in other words.
Well, as I said a moment before, Kay, I was at the table. And at the start of the whole tiers process, I said to the government, let's get this right together so that we can reset things, national and local government together. That's just a fact that I did that. And I never kind of sought the situation that developed. But your question actually sort of answer your own question. So if you do what the government wants to do. So let me remind people of the matter of principle that I took a stand on. The government wanted to lock down businesses in Greater Manchester, but only pay people in those businesses 67% of their wages. And let's remember, they were people working in pubs, in bookmakers, in bingo halls. I said that wasn't right when office workers had been given 4/5 of their wages earlier in the year. And also they were offering no support whatsoever to people who were self-employed. And on both of those fronts, I said, you cannot take away people's livelihoods and not help them manage in this situation. It was a point of principle, Kay. I took a stand. I'm glad I did. I would do it again. Of course, the government has since conceded on those points, and there is now a proper furlough scheme back in place and the support for people who are self-employed. It just seems to me that, you know, they can't leave it alone now. They want to come back at it, and they want to punish me and blame me for everything. Can't we just agree that there was a difference of opinion? It was resolved, and now we all must look forward to getting things right going forward. That's the right way for everyone to go about things.
But it's almost a bit of divide and conquer, isn't it? Because not only did we have that veiled attack on you, we also heard how well Liverpool had done during movement into Tier 3. In addition to that, we're being told that regional mayors will have no influence whatsoever on what's going to happen on Thursday when we find out which tier system we're in. I wonder if you have a view on both of those points.
Well, you're right on the divide and rule point. It's clearly what they're doing, isn't it? And everyone can see what they're doing. Certainly here in the northwest, in Liverpool, they can read between those lines, no problem at all, and everyone can see the government's tactics there. But more broadly, you know, why are they punishing everybody? Because they had a row with us. But as I said, it was a row that needed to be had because we helped win a better support package for very low-paid workers and people who are self-employed, and I'm glad we did take that stand. But it doesn't say much about the government that the minute they're challenged, Kay, they just then have to say, oh, well, I'm sorry, we can't work with anybody, we're just going to sort of bulldoze our way through. You know, that isn't the way to go about things. And actually, if you talk to Steve Rotherham and you talk to people in Lancashire and talk to people in Sheffield, they felt first time round things were railroaded through and there wasn't a real negotiation or a real discussion. So I'm not sure they've changed at all, to be honest. But there is a danger here. They're going to get a reputation, if they're not careful, of being quite a bullying government. If they don't get their own way, they take their toys home, their ball home, and then they just try and impose their will. That, I don't think, is a responsible way to govern. There are going to be disagreements. They created these positions that I hold. You know, there's no point in having devolution if you just sort of, you know, you kind of bow down and you just do as you're told all the time. Governments get things wrong, and sometimes governments need to be challenged. And I won't be able to look my residents here in Greater Manchester in the eye if I sold them down the river just because the government told me that's what they were going to do. So Whitehall and Westminster needs to needs to sort of decide here. They need to grow up. Do they want devolution or do they not? Because sometimes devolution is needed to be a check and balance in the system to stop governments bulldozing their will on the people. Because as we all know, it's the north of England that have been at the sharp end of government's behaviours over many, many years. We are finding our voice now. We are not going to be pushed around in the way that we were in the past. And if the government doesn't like that and Whitehall doesn't like that, well, I'm sorry, but they're going to have to get used to it.
Is there anything that you can do, though, going forward? Because, you know, the government has said they're not going to negotiate with you or any other regional leader. They're going to put these tiers in place and they're going to tell us what they are on Thursday. So, Yabu, sucks to you.
Well, if that's what they're going to do, it's what they're going to do, Kay. They're the government. I've been saying to them all the way through, work with us. You know, we'll probably help you by giving you more intelligence from what it feels like on the ground. You know, that's what we've been saying to them all the way. At the beginning, we said, look, localise, test and trace rather than centralise it. It probably would have worked better and you'd have got more value for that £22 billion that you were asking the Transport Secretary about. And that offer remains. Work with us. We're still in a national crisis. Discuss with us how we're going to make these things work. You know, there's a mass testing offer on the table. That's a positive thing. I want to talk to them about that. We've got to learn to draw a line under things. There will be disagreements. Let's have those disagreements, resolve them, draw a line, and then move forward. That's the responsible way for people to go about things. I respect their position as the elected government, but I hope they respect mine, elected by 2.8 million people here in Greater Manchester. We've got a legitimate voice to put back to the government. And if they don't listen to it, of course, it will get louder and we will stand our ground. But I would still want to work with them. And I've said, passed the message through to the Prime Minister, I will be pleased to welcome him to Manchester at any time to discuss how we can clear the air, move things forward on a better footing. And that offer still stands.
What does standing your ground look like?
It looks like what we did. You know, if I knew that, again, that low-paid workers were going to be pushed into real punishing hardship, I would take a stand for them. I would always do that. And I'm glad we did it, because it wasn't right, was it? Was it right to say that they were only worth 2/3 of their wages while other people are worth 4/5? Now, that's the bottom line, isn't it? The government say that I was showboating or I was political posturing. No, I wasn't. There was a point of principle involved. And I always act where there's principle involved. It's like with the 3 million excluded at the moment, Kay, there's a point of principle involved there too. How can you give some people 80% of their income, but leave 3 million people out in the cold with absolutely nothing? That's a point of principle. It's why I'm taking a stand on that. But it's also why I took a stand over people's wages. If it's pure politics, well, people will make their own judgments about that, and then they will rightly conclude that that is showboating. But I act where there is a point of principle. That is what standing your ground looks like. I've learned to do that over the years on the various issues that I've worked on, from Hillsborough to a whole range of other issues. You know, I came to a point in politics where I wasn't prepared to go along with the ways of Westminster anymore, the way they like to do things. Somebody needs to stand up to them, and where they affect the lives of people in Greater Manchester, particularly the lowest paid, I will always stand my ground.
Finally, and with respect, Mr Mayor, that you are looking after the people of Greater Manchester. The Prime Minister has got to look after the United Kingdom. He's got enough on his plate dealing with the devolved nations without pesky politicians in the regions giving him grief as well when he's trying to save as many lives as possible.
Well, that would be a fair criticism if we hadn't offered all year to him to help. And I promise you, it was all year. What can we do? Involve us more. Let us take more of the strain with test and trace, Kay. I can't remember how many times I came on your programme saying that we were prepared to take more responsibility for these things to help him and the government. So they didn't listen. They didn't listen all year, and they kept centralising everything. So, there's only so many times you can offer. But as I say, the offer still stands. I'm somebody who cares about this country, cares about the people of this country. I always want to do the best by them as far as I see it. And going back to what I did in October, I passionately believe that that was the right stand to take. And actually, it's led to better protection now as people go back into Tier 3 on Thursday. So I don't regret it. If the government can't handle that, well, punish me. But why punish every other local authority in the country by just cutting them out of the discussion? That doesn't sound to me like very responsible grown-up government. And I think this government needs to kind of mature a little now in its approach. It's been in for a year. It takes a while for a government to find its feet. But I think they need to find a better way of working with people, involve more people, respect the role of local and regional government.